Dr. Dowdy woke to an unfamiliar sensation, clarity. For the first time in weeks, the constant ache in his head had vanished. As he stretched, he caught the muffled sounds of Freddy in the kitchen, grumbling over some stubborn appliance. A hint of a smile tugged at his lips. He rose and made his way to the restroom. When he emerged, hair-combed, teeth brushed, and to everyone's surprise, freshly shaven, he felt lighter, almost like a different man. Before we dive in, if you love stories of redemption, resilience, and second chances, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments, have you ever had to rebuild something in your life? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Just then, a knock at the door. Latasha stepped inside, eyes wide with surprise as she studied him. "James, you look like an alien," Freddy said, half in shock, half in amusement. He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. It felt good. Freddy continued from the kitchen. "James, you look like a different person without that beard. I'd say you've shaved 10 years off your age." Latasha grinned.
You really do look good. I like it.
Dr. Dowdy sighed, his tone shifting. "For the last week, I've completed half the CE credits I need. I heard Dr. Chin has been helping you start your nursing license renewal."
Yes.
She nodded.
I've been working at the hospital under her license. I've learned so much. I'm not sure why she's taken me under her wing like this.
He studied her thoughtfully. She and Dr. Henderson are both good people. Good doctors. Don't forget that. Latasha hesitated.
But look at what Dr. Henderson did to you.
Dr. Dowdy exhaled, a trace of bittersweet acceptance in his voice. "Yeah. He saved me from myself, didn't he?" His gaze drifted, thoughtful. "I haven't forgotten, I was drowning in alcohol." Breakfast at the apartment smelled like burnt toast and fresh eggs, Freddy's usual attempt at cooking. Dr. Dowdy sat at the table, absently stirring sugar into his coffee as Freddy limped around the kitchen, humming some old tune.
Freddy, you know you don't have to blacken the toast, right?
Latasha teased, stealing a plate before he could offer his defense. Freddy shot her a mock-offended look. "Listen here, young lady, this is a refined technique, not a mistake." Dr. Dowdy chuckled, savoring the warmth of the laughter filling the small apartment. Then, as if grounding himself in the moment, he cleared his throat. "I'm going to an AA meeting today." The words landed heavily, but not awkwardly. Freddy froze, spatula midair, then placed it down. He studied Dr. Dowdy for a moment, then nodded with quiet approval. "Good. About time, James." Latasha smirked, mirroring the sentiment.
You really couldn't have picked a better day to be responsible. I get paid to drive you, doctor.
Dr. Dowdy gave a small grin, shaking his head. "Billy's determined to get me back in the clinic. I suppose I should thank him." Freddy grabbed his own coffee, settled into a chair, and gave Dr. Dowdy an understanding look. "You know, walking in that door is the hardest part. Once you're in, it gets easier." Latasha nodded, her tone softer this time.
You got this, Dr. Dowdy.
Dr. Dowdy took a sip of his coffee, letting the weight of their words sink in. For the first time in a long time, today felt like the beginning of something real. He pulled on his coat, checking his reflection in the small mirror near the door. Freshly shaven, clear-eyed, for the first time in years, he almost looked like himself again. He wasn't sure how long that feeling would last. Freddy sat at the table, nursing his coffee. He gave Dr. Dowdy a knowing nod. "James, you're doing the right thing." Latasha jingled her car keys in her palm.
All right, doctor, let's go before you change your mind.
The air outside was crisp. They stepped onto the sidewalk, weaving through the downtown shuffle of pedestrians, horns honking in the distance. Latasha unlocked the passenger side and slid into the driver's seat. Dr. Dowdy hesitated before getting in. This was real now, there was no turning back. Once inside the car, Latasha buckled her seatbelt.
Freddy will keep the apartment warm,
she said casually, trying to break the silence. Dr. Dowdy exhaled, staring at the dashboard. It's been a long time since I stepped into that church. Latasha glanced at him.
It's just a building, doctor. But I guess that's not really true for you, is it?
He shook his head. No. That building, my family, everything I left behind is in there. They pulled into traffic, the city streets narrowing as they moved toward the older part of town. The closer they got, the quieter Dr. Dowdy became. He pressed his fingers against his temple, a habit Latasha had come to recognize, not pain, but thinking too hard about something. I used to sit in the third row, he murmured. My son would fall asleep against my arm, and my daughter, she'd fidget, playing with her dress, waiting for service to end so she could run outside. Latasha kept her eyes on the road.
And your wife?
Dr. Dowdy's throat tightened. She'd always take notes, listen to every word Pastor Miller said. Said it made her feel grounded. They turned onto the familiar street. There it was, the church. A modest but beautiful brick building stood at the corner, the old stained glass windows reflecting the afternoon sun. A few cars were parked along the curb, people moving toward the entrance for the meeting. Latasha pulled into a spot near the sidewalk, miraculously finding parking despite the tight downtown space. She turned off the engine but didn't rush him. Dr. Dowdy stared at the building, his pulse drumming against his ribs. I don't think I can do this. Latasha leaned back against her seat.
Then we sit here. For as long as you need.
The doors creaked open. An older man stepped into the sunlight, his steps slow but deliberate, Pastor Miller, thinner now, grayer, but somehow unchanged. His gaze swept over the parked cars, then locked onto the familiar face behind the passenger side window. Recognition dawned. And before Dr. Dowdy could blink, Pastor Miller was limping toward them, his eyes alight with something that felt dangerously close to joy. Latasha barely had time to react before Pastor Miller reached into the car, arms open, pulling Dr. Dowdy into a firm embrace. James, he said, his voice warm, steady. It's so good to see you. Dr. Dowdy felt the weight of the past press into him, 7 years of distance, regret, and isolation, and yet, in this moment, none of it seemed to matter. He swallowed hard. There was no turning back now. Pastor Miller pulled back, his hand resting briefly on Dr. Dowdy's shoulder, as if offering silent reassurance. Come inside, he said simply. And just like that, James Dowdy stepped out of the car and into the church. The three of them sat near the middle of the room, the wooden chairs arranged in a loose circle. The scent of old books and worn carpet hung in the air, a quiet reminder of time passing in this familiar place. Pastor Miller settled beside Dr. Dowdy, his presence a steady anchor. Latasha remained to his right, hands folded in her lap, watching the room with quiet curiosity. A man near the front cleared his throat and spoke.
Welcome to the Uptown meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Tom, and I am an alcoholic.
The words came with ease, a practiced rhythm. Others echoed their introductions, the names weaving into a steady hum. Some faces were tired, others determined, but all carried the same quiet understanding. Dr. Dowdy felt the weight of expectation pressing against him. Would he speak? Could he? Someone led the group in the serenity prayer, voices rising together, not in perfect unison, but in shared intention.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can. And wisdom to know the difference.
Dr. Dowdy shifted in his seat, rolling his fingers against the armrest. The words settled in his chest, familiar yet foreign. He had spoken them once, years ago, when life made sense, when he wasn't drowning. When he had a family. When he had a career. When he wasn't this. The chairperson continued, reading from the big book, words about surrender, acceptance, accountability. Dr. Dowdy's gaze drifted to his hands. steady now, but they hadn't always been. He remembered the weight of a scalpel. The precision. The certainty in his movements. In the moment his certainty failed him. The patient. The mistake. The grief that swallowed him whole. He flexed his fingers, exhaling through his nose. That's why he was here. Not because Henderson demanded it. Not because Latasha drove him. But because he had finally decided he had nowhere else to run. Pastor Miller glanced at him but said nothing. He didn't need to. Dr. Dowdy inhaled deeply, releasing the breath as if surrendering something invisible. And for the first time in 7 years, he listened. The city pulsed around them, horns blaring, voices overlapping, the distant hum of life moving forward. But for Dr. Dowdy, Latasha, and Freddy, today wasn't about the world outside. Today, it was about reclaiming what they'd left behind. Dr. Dowdy pulled his coat tight as they rounded a familiar corner. The clinic was only a few blocks away, but each step felt heavier than the last. That's when they spotted her, Miss Geraldine, bundled in layers, propped against the brick wall near the old grocery store, surveying the street like she owned it. She squinted as they approached, shifting slightly.
Well, look who finally decided to show his face.
Latasha grinned, stopping just in front of her.
Miss Geraldine, it's been a minute. Now, be honest, how's that behind of yours? Healed up, or do I need to drag you in for some more treatment?
Miss Geraldine scoffed, waving a dismissive hand.
Oh, now you care? You abandoned me for him.
She jabbed a finger toward Dr. Dowdy.
Because he had drunkard withdrawals.
She smacked her lips, shaking her head.
Then you got the nerve to ask if I need help. What do you figure?
Freddy tried and failed to suppress a laugh, earning himself a side-eye from Latasha. Dr. Dowdy took a slow breath, hands deep in his pockets. We're back, Geraldine. The clinic is reopening today. That made her pause. Her gaze flicked between them, measuring the truth behind the words. Then, a knowing smirk curled at the edge of her mouth.
Well, now. That's news.
Latasha shook her head.
You know if we tell you, we just told everyone.
Miss Geraldine snorted.
That's right, sugar. Now step aside, I got people to tell.
She pushed off the wall, muttering as she limped down the sidewalk, her voice already carrying toward the nearest alley. Within minutes, whispers of the reopening would weave through the city's forgotten corners. The clinic's front door was stiff with disuse. Freddy adjusted the strap of his bag, inhaling deeply before stepping forward. Dr. Dowdy lifted the keys, hesitating just for a second before sliding them into the lock. The mechanism clicked, familiar and foreign all at once. Latasha let out a slow breath.
Well, doctor. Let's work some miracles.
I'll handle the chaos, you two just do your magic. Freddy grinned, stepping inside. As they crossed the threshold, the scent of antiseptic and dust welcomed them back. It wasn't just a clinic, it was a second chance. And today, the fight continued. The clinic was quiet, long emptied for the night, but inside the small apartment, Dr. Dowdy sat hunched over the kitchen table, his hands clenched around a cold coffee mug. His mind waged war against itself, flashes of his past twisting into regret, the phantom ache of a life he once knew. Freddy sat across from him, wordlessly refilling his coffee. You want to talk, James? Dr. Dowdy exhaled through his nose, staring down at the swirling liquid. I almost had a drink tonight. Freddy didn't flinch. But you didn't. Dr. Dowdy's grip tightened. Not yet. Silence stretched between them, thick but not suffocating. Freddy leaned back, running a hand over his face. You think it's supposed to be easy, huh? Sobriety? Dr. Dowdy scoffed, shaking his head. I don't know if I even deserve it. Freddy's gaze sharpened. Doesn't matter what you deserve, James. Only matters what you do next. The words settled somewhere deep, cutting through the noise in Dr. Dowdy's mind. Yeah, he murmured. What I do next? The air was fresh but crisp as Latasha bustled into the clinic, her bag slung over her shoulder. She found Dr. Dowdy at the supply cabinet, his movements slower than usual, his exhaustion evident.
Long night, doctor?
She asked, eyebrows raised. Dr. Dowdy sighed, rubbing his temple. I'm still here, aren't I? Latasha smirked, but instead of responding, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small scrap of paper.
I got something for you.
She held it out. He frowned before cautiously taking it. Larry's phone number? His throat tightened as he stared at the digits. How did you? Latasha shrugged.
Doesn't matter. What matters is what you do next.
She's learning from me. Dr. Dowdy swallowed hard. 7 years. The weight of time pressed against his chest. Was this his chance? He picked up the phone and slowly dialed the number, then Larry's phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Dr. Dowdy's pulse drummed, his grip tightening around the receiver. Then... Hello? The voice was deeper than he remembered. Dr. Dowdy swallowed hard. Larry, it's me. Your dad. Silence. Then, a sharp exhale. Why now? Dr. Dowdy pressed his fist against his knee, exhaling slowly. Because I finally stopped running. Another pause, longer this time. Where are you? Dr. Dowdy glanced toward the clinic's entrance, the faded sign hanging above the door. At the clinic. Helping people who need it. Larry hesitated, the silence stretching between them. What clinic? Dr. Dowdy took a breath, steadying himself. Look, I spent 7 years drowning in alcohol, homeless, and worthless. I had help finding myself from people who actually cared. I'm still a doctor, and I still have skills. I was asked to help others, not unlike myself. Larry didn't respond immediately. Then, quietly. Okay. Dr. Dowdy's throat tightened. This was his chance. Do you know the old church downtown? On Irving Street? Larry's voice, slightly guarded. The homeless clinic is 1 block east of it. Could you possibly come and see what we're doing here? A pause. A longer inhale on the other end. Then, Larry's voice, softer than before. Yeah. A pause. A longer inhale on the other end. Then, Larry's voice, softer than before. Yeah. I can. You have my attention. Larry tilted his head, scanning the clinic, the worn chairs, the steady hum of quiet conversation, the soft rustle of supplies being unpacked. So, you really help people here? Dr. Dowdy met his gaze, steady but unsure. Every day. Larry studied him for a long moment, as if weighing the truth in his father's words. Then, he exhaled deeply. All right. A pause. His shoulders shifted, as if carrying a weight he hadn't dared put down. I missed you. Every day, Dad. His voice wavered, raw but unflinching. I can't tell you how many nights I cried myself to sleep. Dr. Dowdy's breath hitched, his hands tightening at his sides. 7 years. 7 lost years. Larry hesitated for only a second more before closing the gap between them, pulling his father into a fierce, undeniable embrace. Dad! I love you! I have missed you! The dam broke, years of regret, lost time, and unspoken grief spilling out in silent tears. They held on to each other, neither speaking, neither pulling away. And in that moment, forgiveness wasn't a question. It was the only thing that mattered. If this journey resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What part of Dr. Dowdy's story stuck with you the most? Let's keep the conversation going. This is the story of a man who, driven by pride, made a mistake that cost his patient's life. The weight of that loss consumed him, stripping away everything: his medical practice, his family, and his sense of self. For 7 years, he drowned in regret, believing there was no way back. But through the unwavering faith of one man, Billy, Dr. Dowdy found a reason to live again. His journey was not his alone. Latasha, Freddy, and Dr. Dowdy leaned on each other, their struggles intertwining, their resilience shaping not just their own paths, but the lives of countless others. Through faith, grit, and the relentless pursuit of redemption, they prove that no one is truly lost if they choose to fight for something bigger than themselves. The human spirit endures. And when we choose to help others, we find that we are saving ourselves with them.